All of us reach a point in time where we are depleted and need to somehow find a way to reignite the fire within. But how do we spark that flame? Welcome to Reignite Resilience, where we will venture into the heart of the human spirit. We'll discuss the art of reigniting our passion and strategies to stoke our enthusiasm. And now, here are your hosts, Natalie Davis and Pamela Cass.
Welcome back to another episode of Reignite Resilience. I'm your co-host, Natalie Davis, and I am so excited to be back with all of you, joining you this week. And of course, you have your co-host, Pam Cass, that's on today. Hello, Pam. How are you?
I am fabulous. It is, we have a little bit more of a clear sky today. We've had fires in the mountains close to Fort
Yes.
Collins, and it's been, we
Yes.
haven't been able to see the mountains really or the sky, and with just like a red moon and a red sun during the day. So it's been a little
Yes.
eerie. So I'm really
Yeah.
I can see some blue sky today. So I'm
Oh, that's good. That's good.
hoping that it's,
I know that there's a lot of the country that's
yeah.
unfortunately on fire right now, which is strange. And that's when we're in our spring season and we're getting all of the rain and people complain about it being rainy. I'm like, nope, the moisture's good. We like the moisture. Let's get the ground a little wetter than normal and then avoid these. But we almost made it through the whole summer without seeing any fires pop up.
We
Almost.
did.
Almost. So
And
close. So
yeah,
close.
it's so funny because in the spring, I'm so ready for summer. In the summer, I'm ready for fall. Not winter. I would never say winter. Like if we could skip that, I'd be good with that. Fall.
I am still fully embracing summer. I'm here for it. I have just told myself that I am now in the season of life that I'm chasing summer. So wherever I can go that it's summer, I want to be there.
If I got a beach, I'd feel more inclined to sit
100%.
as well. So
Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Well, I am excited because we have a fabulous guest that's joining us today. So why don't we just jump right in, tell our listeners who's joining us, and then dive into what I think is going to be a fabulous conversation. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm excited for this. So
Yeah.
today we have Jeff Wenninger. Hopefully I said that right. He is a nationally recognized law enforcement expert with over 33 years of experience, primarily with the LAPD. As the founder and CEO of Law Enforcement Consultants, LLC, he specializes in police use of force incidents, crowd management, school safety, and the development of police management best practices. His work aims to align police methods with societal expectations, improve public trust, and enhance police training. Thank you so much for joining us today. I'm looking forward to this conversation.
So am I. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself. What got you into law enforcement, I guess, in the first place? Because I'd love to hear that story first.
Well, it's not something that I could say when I was a child that I always knew I wanted to be a police officer. If you would have told me when I was 18 that I was going to have a 33-year law enforcement career out in Los Angeles, I would have told you were crazy. I was an elite athlete and I played Division I college ice hockey on scholarship. And while I was in college, I had an incident with the police that changed the entire trajectory of my life. Prior to that incident, I was a finance major. And this incident resulted in me wanting to take some criminal justice classes, and I found it fascinating. So I completely changed my major. And my father, he was a sociology professor, and I wanted to follow him into academia and be a professor of criminal justice. So when it was time for me to start my studies on a PhD program, my father encouraged me to go get a minimum of 5 years of law enforcement experience, preferably at a large law enforcement agency. So I would find my studies to be much more rewarding, and I'd be a much more credible professor and instructor.
Nice.
So that's what I ended up doing, and that's how I ended up out in Los Angeles.
Okay, so 5 years of experience, did that lead into 33 years, or did you take a break and get your PhD and then go back to law enforcement?
No, I stayed in law enforcement consecutively for 33 years. I never went back and got my PhD.
Yeah.
Wow. Do you feel comfortable sharing the incident that happened that led you down that path?
Oh, absolutely. I don't have a problem with that at all. So I was 20 years old, and this was back when the drinking age was 19. So a hockey buddy of mine and myself, we went out to a bar on a Friday night, and it was the Friday night just before Labor Day weekend, or it was the Friday night of Labor Day weekend. And we stayed until the bar closed. And when the bar closed, all the students were funneling out of the exit doors onto this sidewalk that was not designed to hold the capacity of students that were coming out of the bar. So many of us ended up out into the street. And my buddy, he saw this car with some nice looking young ladies in it, trying to navigate through all of the people in the crowd that was now in the street. And he thought it would be cute if he just kind of propped himself up on the hood. And the girl that was driving didn't really appreciate that. And when she slammed on the brakes, he fell off the hood and he grabbed the antenna. And I'm kind of aging myself a little bit because this was back when he had antennas on the hood of the car, and he snapped it off.
Okay.
Lo and behold, there was a police officer just up the way and saw the entire incident.
Yeah.
So he came down and grabbed my friend, put him in handcuffs, and put him in the back seat of the police car. So I'm like, well, you have a buddy system, so to speak. So I needed to find out where they were taking him, how long it was going to take to process him, and what it was going to cost for me to get him out of jail. So I approached the police officer, and he immediately was very belligerent with me. And he made it very clear that if I didn't want to go to jail as well, I needed to get back up on the sidewalk. So I had been drinking, but I had my wits about me, and I went back up on the sidewalk. And it wasn't long before two other officers showed up. And when they arrived, the original officer pointed directly at me. And they came over and they asked me for my identification using an expletive. And as I was reaching for my wallet, they began to beat me. And before I knew it, I was handcuffed. I was feeling the cold of the metal handcuffs around my wrists, and I was in the back seat of a police car heading to the city jail. And I was booked for resisting arrest, disorderly conduct, and interfering in official business.
Mm.
And I'm like, I didn't do anything wrong. And then to add insult to injury, I asked where my friend was. And they said, well, we let him go. So here, my friend was the one who did something that he perceived as a prank. And I just inquired about what needed to be done to assist getting him out of jail when they were done processing him. And then I was the one that ended up going to jail and being charged. So I had worked all summer, and I refused to take any of the plea deals that they offered me because I didn't do anything wrong. And I spent my entire summer's earnings on an attorney, and I took it all the way to a jury trial. And when I arrived for the jury trial, they presented me with an offer. They said, if you sign this ticket for a $60 fine, we'll drop all charges. So I thought, okay, that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Well, that's how it was adjudicated. Now that's not it. It gets crazier. So about a year and a half later, the same agency that arrested me, they advertised for correction officers to work in the city jail that I actually spent the night in. And kind of as a joke, I applied.
Yeah.
I got hired.
Oh, wow.
That,
Of course.
if that is not the ultimate exoneration of any wrongdoing,
Yeah.
I don't know what is. So I did. I took the job and I worked there. And actually, one of the officers, who at the time was a sergeant, who had now promoted to lieutenant, who was one of the individuals that beat me, he was my boss. And I actually liked him. I learned to like him. He had a keen sense of humor. And at one point, he called me into his office, and after some, friendly banter, he brought up the topic of the night of my arrest. And he explained to me that from a law enforcement officer's perspective, that when they identify somebody that they perceive as an individual that potentially could escalate the incident, they're going to make an example of you to try to keep control. And I accepted that, but that really proved to be kind of the first time of that the ends justifies the means in regards to a justification for excessive force by law enforcement. But it was that incident that caused me to want to go into law enforcement.
Okay. And so when you had applied for that job, was it because you wanted to get in law enforcement, or was this, I just want to see if I can get in there after what just happened?
Well, I had wanted to initially, as a result of the incident, I was considering going to law school. And I'm dyslexic,
Mhm.
and I struggled in school until I was in seventh grade. When I was in fifth grade, I was reading at a first grade level. But in seventh grade, I had a reading teacher that suspected I had dyslexia, asked for me to come in during my lunch break and tested me, which confirmed her suspicions. And then I came in during my lunch hour every day, and she taught me to read and learn as a dyslexic child. So school was always challenging to me, and I always learned a little differently than most. I always want to sit in the front row. I always ask a lot of questions, a lot of interactions, with my teachers and professors, and how I learn.
Mhm.
But so my neighbor, my parents' best friends, she was a judge. And
Okay.
I inquired and sat down to get some advice from her relative to my desire to go to law school. And she said, let's be honest, you're not going to get into any high-end law school. You're probably going to get into what they consider a factory, where you'll be an attorney where you're going to be a dime a dozen. And
Mhm.
she didn't encourage me to do that. Now, looking back in hindsight, that's probably bad advice. But truth be told, at that point, I hadn't really demonstrated that I was capable of that kind of academic performance. So then I decided, well, let me pivot. And that's when I pivoted and said, I want to get some experience in law enforcement and be a professor of criminal justice.
Right.
So that's how I ended up going in that direction.
And you're simultaneously taking these criminal justice courses while you're now serving as a corrections officer.
Right. Yeah, I was
Yeah.
worked nights. I worked 10 at night to 6 in the morning, and I went to school
Yeah.
during the day. Yeah.
Wow. Wow.
Uh,
That is definitely one of those moments that changes everything that you thought was your reality. Um, because this incident didn't impact your hockey career. You were still able to finish out playing hockey, or did this interfere with you being able to play hockey?
At that point, I was done with my
Okay.
hockey career in college,
Yeah.
and I was working on a master's degree. So
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
at that point, when the incident occurred, I was still an undergraduate student. But by the time I had gotten hired and made this transition to wanting to earn my PhD and be a professor of criminal justice, I was working on my graduate studies.
Got it. Wow.
It's so interesting that you had this event happen, which could have gone either in two directions. One,
Yeah.
make you interested and want to go into that field, or two, absolutely have this feeling towards cops and have that anger and go another direction. So kudos to you for picking the direction you did, because look at where you're at today. It's
Well,
incredible.
really, it's about your mindset, actually. It's not it's in life, it's never about what happens to you. It's
That's
how
how you
you how
react.
you respond to that and those
Hmm.
things that happen to you. And I had great role models as parents. And I'll share with you my background because it's rather unique. I was born to a teenage mother, and she put me up for adoption. And my parents, who adopted me, they were married for 12 years, and they were trying to have children. They wanted four children, each a year apart. And
Wow.
after 12 years of trying, they said, let's go the adoption route.
Mhm.
Just as life often has it, right about the time they were approved for adoption, my mother became pregnant with my sister. And
Hmm.
they had my sister, but they still had the same goal of four children, each a year apart. So they went ahead and they adopted me. And then they adopted my brother, and he's Japanese. And then I had a foster sister who's black.
Oh,
And
wow.
I grew up in Kent, Ohio, in the Midwest in the 60s and 70s. So I had a unique experience growing up in regards to, society and race and how it plays out. And I was sensitive and had an appreciation for like microaggression, racism, and those sorts of things. You know, I remember going to the A&P grocery store, which was in downtown Kent, and being there with my mother, and all four of us are hanging off the grocery cart. And this woman comes up with a veneer of a big smile on her face, and she goes, "Oh, your children look all so much alike." And she's taking a stab at my mother,
Yeah.
not knowing any of the history of my family and who we actually are. But my mother, just the poise and the grace that she handled herself with throughout these types of incidents. I at the time was too young to understand, but looking back, what a strong, powerful message she sent, not through her words, but through her body language and her behavior, because she didn't let it affect her, and we continued on with our day as we would have had that interaction never occurred. So, my parents were very, very civic minded, well ahead of their time in how they perceive things. My mother was highly educated. She was she was a chemist with DuPont prior to giving up her career because she wanted to be a mother. That was her, she felt was the most important role she'd ever play in life. And she was, but that didn't derail her from the things that motivated her. She was the president of League of Women Voters. She was a city councilwoman.
Wow.
My parents were the co-founders of the Kent Environmental Council, which is still in effect today. So, my folks they were trailblazers. And
Yeah.
it's really about if my parents allowed how society at that time perceived what they were doing to impact their decisions and their actions, then I probably wouldn't have had the experience of being raised in their family, and especially
Exactly.
the type of family that I was. So that was something that was just kind of ingrained in me, not necessarily through discussion, but by their modeling.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
example they set. That's
That's
amazing.
beautiful. I mean, because when you talk about the time frame, the era, it was a time that you didn't have as much sensitivity and empathy. I think that at least we have today when we're recording this. I feel that we have that. We've made some progress. Not perfect, but we're definitely making progress. And so having and seeing that, like the subtleties in your upbringing that have poured into you and the character of you and your siblings, right? Like that's huge, huge.
Yeah, I mean, we're all very, it's interesting because we all have biologically different backgrounds, right?
Mhm.
But all a similar environment that we were raised in. And I would say that we're very strong argument for the nurture
Yes.
over the
Yes.
nature,
Yeah.
because just how we view the
Mhm.
world and in the things that we take on and champion, and
Yeah.
how we're resolute about our values and what we believe in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. I love it. So you were in school while you were as a correction officer, and then how long did that take you finish? And then kind of tell us that story, that journey.
Joining the LAPD, like that's
Yeah,
I feel like that's a
it's a
huge
big
jump.
deal. Yeah, huge, huge.
Well, I'm like, I wasn't going to go join some law enforcement agency that
Yeah.
didn't have a reputation
Hmm.
that preceded it. So, the LAPD, when I was in college, I don't know if you remember the movie Colors with Robert Duvall and Sean Penn.
Hmm.
Yep.
Hmm.
I remember just watching that, and I mean, as shallow as it may be, but I thought their uniforms were so cool because they don't have patches and they have this, this unbelievable badge. I mean, it's just such a
Yes.
lustrous badge that they have, and they're known for SWAT and being
Yeah.
perennial leaders in tactics in law enforcement nationwide. And just like my hockey had molded me to always strive to achieve to be the best. Um, that's what I took into my law enforcement career. So I felt that the LAPD was the best of the best, and where better to go than to Los
The
Angeles
best. Yeah.
to get my policing experience.
Yeah.
And so,
How
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, how many times did you have to apply before being accepted, or was it a one and you were in?
Oh, one and done.
Okay.
Wow.
I applied with the LAPD, and as a backup, I applied for the LA County Sheriff's Department.
Okay.
And when I went through the process, and I was hired by both, and I was hired by LA County Sheriff's first. And I had this interesting interaction when I was at police headquarters prior to being hired by the LAPD. There was a sergeant that was in charge of backgrounds, and I ran into him, and he said to me, "Son, I see that you have been hired by the LA County Sheriff's Department. You're a fool if you don't take that job. We used to be better, but we're no longer better." So that caused me to have a little bit of pause.
Mm.
Yeah.
And so this was coupled with an experience that I had going through the process with the LA County Sheriff's Department. When I was doing the physical fitness testing with the sheriffs, I ran into an individual who was also going through the same process.
Mm.
And he said, my father's a retired sergeant from the LAPD. He would not even allow me to apply for the LAPD. I said,
Oh.
why is that? So he says, why don't you come over and have a beer with my father? I said, well, who better to hear it from than the source itself? So I went over and met him, and he shared some things with me, and so there I had those two incidents that I was like, perhaps the sheriff's department may be the better way to go. Now, I ultimately chose to go with the sheriff's initially,
Mm.
but not for the reasons of what they had said to me. It was more the fact that I grew up in Kent, Ohio, about a population of 26,000 people. I
Mhm.
left home when I was 16. I played junior hockey in Canada for a short period of time in a community of under 10,000. I played in the United States Hockey League in Dubuque, Iowa. That's about 62,000. And, so the largest place I had lived was Dubuque, Iowa, as far as a population. So moving out to Los Angeles, and you were talking about millions of people,
Mhm.
it was going to take a while for me to acclimate to just living out there. You,
Exactly.
you couldn't go to the grocery store without hearing three other languages being spoken. That was completely
Right.
foreign to me.
Mhm.
Um, so there was a whole, you know, I had to evolve into being able to be effective in understanding the communities out there and the communities I
Mm.
would be responsible for policing. So
Mhm.
I felt that perhaps the sheriff's department might be the best way to go because your initial assignment is in a controlled environment in custody inside one of the jails. So
Mm.
that's why I chose to go with the sheriff's department. And it proved to be a sound decision. I went into the academy. It was 157 people originally in my police academy with the LA County Sheriff's Department. And we graduated 107. So about a third washed out.
Wow.
And when it was all said and done, I was recognized as the honor recruit, which is essentially the number one recruit in the class. And they take into consideration your academic score, your physical fitness score, and your marksmanship, as well as your leadership skills. You're voted in by your peers, as well as the drill instructor staff. And so it was quite an honor to be recognized for that because I had a 98.7% academic score. I led the class in physical fitness scores, and I was number two in marksmanship. So that was something that I prided myself in. But it was kind of interesting. There, beyond myself having pride in that, a lot of people didn't give much credence to it. A lot of people felt that I was kind of ridiculous how much studying I did because they would often say, all you need is a 70% to pass.
Mm.
So
Mhm.
anything that you're putting in beyond what you would need to get a 70% is wasted
It's a
time.
waste of time.
That's
Yes.
not that's
Yes.
not how I roll. My
Wow.
parents raised me that you do the best you possibly can at everything you attempt to achieve. So
But
uh,
oh my God, that just makes me think of the conversation with the neighbor who said, "Oh, you're not smart enough to be an attorney." And I'm
Right.
like, I think effort can outdo, natural talent. I mean,
Mhm.
I think if you want something bad enough, you're gonna, because I have dyslexia, and it was one of those things I had to work harder than everybody else to get really good
Mhm.
grades, but I didn't know anything different. So you
uh,
could have been an attorney if you wanted to, but your path went a different way for a different reason. So
I did. It's things happen for a reason.
yeah.
And really it's what I always tell my son. I would much rather like he gets straight A's generally, and he'll get a B every now and then. And
Mhm.
my answer to him is, Christopher, did you do the best you possibly could? And he's like, yes. I'm not worried about the result. I'm worried about the effort. And if the effort was there, everything else will take care of itself. I would much rather have somebody on my team that gives 100% than somebody that has all the talent in the world that gives me 85%.
Exactly.
Or
So,
70%, because that's all I needed.
all right. Yeah.
It's passing. It's
Yeah.
passing.
Yeah.
Yes.
So how long did you
Exactly.
stay at the sheriff's department before you went to LAPD?
3 years.
Okay.
there was an economic slowdown, and the county was not sending deputies out to patrol divisions as quickly as they typically would. And to be honest, working in the jail is like doing a jail sentence of your own.
Yeah.
And I felt at the time I still had a timeline.
Mhm.
And I felt like, I've spent 3 years here and I haven't really had the experiences that I want in law enforcement. So I lateraled over to LAPD. And luckily they had a program where you lateral over. I didn't have to do the whole academy. I just did 2 months in a
Nice.
lateral class where you learn about LAPD policies and procedures. And then you have to show proficiency in firearms and in the defensive tactics. And then you go out to the division you choose to go to work. So
Cool.
it was a good opportunity for me.
What division did you decide to go into at LAPD?
Well, when I was an LA County Sheriff, this was back the Rodney King beating, and then you had the Rodney King riots.
Yeah.
Um, when I was a deputy sheriff, when the Rodney King riots started, I was at a Tony Roma's in Glendale, California, which is a suburb just north of Los Angeles.
Mhm.
I was there with my roommate, who was another deputy sheriff. And back then, we didn't have cell phones or pagers. So we were watching the news, and they basically announced that all LA County sheriffs and LAPD sworn personnel report to units of assignment. So I went in and I got deployed down to Firestone Station with the sheriff's department, which is just east of 77th Division, which is where the riots started. That was the flashpoint, Florence and Normandy, smack dab in the middle of 77th Division. So I was policing down there during that entire time of the riots. And so I wanted to go down and work 77th Division when I went over to LAPD, work the community that the flashpoint occurred in. Why? Because it's probably the most challenging community to police at that time.
Yeah.
They they generally hated the LAPD,
Hmm.
and justifiably so.
Yeah. Wow. So as you're in that space, what was your motivation, or what continued to motivate and inspire you other than wanting to have the experience, and be in that community and being of service? Were you driven and charged by making amends within the community, building a sense of community, continuing to raise awareness and education? Kind of what drove you as you were going through? Because it wasn't easy. I mean, you probably stepped into the most challenging space possible.
Well, it wasn't. I never at any time did I think that I had the blueprint or knew the answers to everything. This was really a period for me to learn.
Yes.
So I viewed it as my opportunity to go into the most robust learning environment I possibly could.
Yeah.
And that's really what I was getting out of it. And
Yeah.
I was learning a heck of a lot. I mean,
Yes.
it's unbelievable what I was learning from the culture of law enforcement
Yeah.
to the unique details of the various diverse communities that you'll police,
Yes.
and being able to understand and meet people and interact with people in the place they are in at that moment,
Mm.
and the
Mhm.
importance of all of that. Now you have to remember, my father was a sociology professor,
Yes.
and he went to the University of Illinois to get his PhD, and he studied law enforcement, the professionalism of law enforcement. I still, my father has passed away, but I still have his PhD dissertation,
Wow.
and
Yeah.
he was familiar with law enforcement. He was familiar with the challenges, and when I thought I had something figured out, I I would learn very quickly with having a discussion with my father that I didn't.
Right.
And he didn't tell me, he would never outwardly say, well, no, Jeff, you got this wrong or whatever. He would always listen. And then he would very wisely and astutely say, well, it seems to me that you need to consider. And then he'd say, the things that he felt I needed to consider, and allowed me to navigate
Yeah.
that thought process. So he was developing, and it wasn't just after my law enforcement career. He did this when I was growing up.
Hmm.
He was developing my critical thinking skills,
Exactly.
me even actually realizing it.
Yes.
Um, so my dad actually never did he tell me what to do.
Yeah.
He always allowed me to navigate through his own critical thinking and his encouragement of me articulating my rationale for my conclusions.
Yeah.
And that was something that I carried with me into my law enforcement career and as my life as a father now with a 14-year-old son.
Thank you for joining us today on the Reignite Resilience podcast. We hope you had some aha moments and learned a few new real-life ideas to fuel the flames of passion. Please subscribe on your favorite streaming platform, like or download your favorite episodes, and of course, share with your friends and family. We look forward to seeing you again next time on Reignite Resilience.